Hello everyone, I'm Annie Gibbins and you're listening to Memoirs of Successful Women, the podcast where you get to hear candid conversations with fascinating women from around the globe who share aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure their success, and what they have learned along the way. Well, hello and welcome to Memoirs of Successful Women. Today I'm introducing you to Elena Armijo, who has been a professional opera singer traveling the world for a good 10 years. She's performed at Lincoln Center, Carnegie Hall, amazing gifts and talents in that sector. And then today we're going to be talking about her journey to become an executive leadership coach and her passion for women to be able to be at the table that they want to dine at, professionally, and being able to, how do we get it all? How do we actually get those positions that we should be in, have earned and desire, while supporting our own needs also as women? How do we make that happen? So I'm going to let Elena share with you today. So welcome to the program, Elena.
Yeah, thank you so much, Annie, for having me. I'm so excited to be with you.
It's such a joy. I'm really excited about this topic because during COVID, it has been an extremely challenging time for women. While we've been spending the last few years really trying to make sure that we increase the opportunity for women to be on boards, in senior professional roles, and I know that this is your area of expertise, it's also been a time of great challenge for women, particularly because when you're homeschooling children and the world sort of suddenly changes, you're the first one to get that negative hit as well. And so talk me through, first of all, what's your main passion and desire in this area for women to be able to have an environment that fosters and supports them being in these positions?
Oh, I love the way you phrase that, because my main passion and desire, that's delicious. When I think about women being overly supported in a way that we never have before, what I envision is being able to have real authentic conversations about what support actually looks like. And I think that's a place I would start is, maybe before COVID. I like to say COVID exposed all the things we were unwilling to talk about in the world. And that's a little bit different for each person, but for women in particular, I think there was always a lot of taboo things where you couldn't say what kind of support you needed, or you had all these limiting beliefs about not being ahead of the curve or on the same path as potentially men or counterparts. And so for me, it starts like with people being able to own what they truly need. And that's going to be different for each woman. Even that is a different conversation. But in a dream world, it's, you're able to come to your employer or your company and say, hey, listen, this is what I need. And it might be time off or a coach or a mental health resource, or, straight up support and finding people to help you watch your children, like, where are some resources I can go now that we aren't doing this? Or can you as a company help me create this? Another thing, is loneliness during this pandemic. I think that a community and culture has sort of been tested. And that's another thing. As a woman in a dream world, coming and saying, I really am lonely and I'm missing a community and I want to create that here. And this is my vision for that. Right. So I know it's a little bit of a long answer, but it's sort of, we would be able to ask for what we need.
Yeah. Which is big and bold, isn't it? Because we've always been told professionally to be quiet, to accept what we're given, to not be demanding, to, hope they pick me almost, and so it's actually a massive shift to say, if I'm the right person for this role, this is what I'm going to need. You're fostering an environment to support me to be the best version of myself in this role, right? And I love what you said about that's going to be different for different people. So we're talking executive positions here. We appreciate you can't have this in a, in a little shop or somewhere else. But
Yeah.
in this position, that's exactly right. I know, I'm a mum of 5. I had 2 sets of twins. So back in the day,
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
I know. So I never had that sort of support. And now, as a CEO of a largely female team, I'm able to then give that back. What sort of flexibility do you need to be your best self at work? Do you need a flexibility of the hours? Do you need a flexibility in, when meetings are held? All sorts of things, So it's a massive change for you to sort of say, okay, well, women, it's about having that boldness to say, I would love to be able to give above and beyond, and so for that, I would really love these things to be in the environment. So, and that's going to be so different from someone else. Someone else might have, for example, a partner who travels all the time, and or you might have childcare differences, or you might actually be like you, an opera singer on the side, and have some shows or something that you want to do, and sort of like, how can I? But I'll be happier if I get the mix, right? Do you find
exactly
variety that they're going? How do I get the balance?
Exactly. And what a different mindset, right? Because in the past, I think the way some companies are built or employers think is, how can I make this equal for all, right? That's sort of the mindset, which is meaning like maybe we have a wellness day, or everybody gets the same amount of time off, or we we all have this thing to attend that creates culture. And it was very non-personalized and kind of one bucket to take care of everything for people.
Yes.
And what I really just heard you say, which is those examples are all beautiful, because it's going to take that level of relationship with your people to actually figure out what they need. And I think that's the thing that we've been avoiding in our hustle culture, or, well, I don't have enough time to attend to that, or enough resources, or or some leaders just simply thinking that's not important. That's not a use of my time. Right. And so they leave it to an HR department or something. And as you just said, it makes all the difference in the world if you're in that much relationship with your people.
Mm. It really does. And the more senior I've become in leadership, I've realized that supportive nature, that empathy with people's situations, the ability to adapt and adjust to specific situations makes all the difference. I mean, these people then that you lead will work above and beyond because they appreciate that. They realize that they would not get that in other companies, in other businesses, because it is challenging, but they will, there's so much value in that. Whereas the traditional leadership approach it's a bit more like, the family approach, that we all get the same, so no one gets upset that someone's getting special privileges.
Yes, 100%. It's such a family dynamic. It's true.
It's such a family dynamic. It's like, well, you got that. Why didn't I? Why is that? Whereas life is, people have got different circumstances. They've got different situations. They might have a partner who's, having chemo or something that they want to do it. I had another lady who was going for IVF treatment, and there are certain times you can't say, well, you can't do that between 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Like, where is the flexibility? And I love what you're saying there, that, the modern world is actually saying, one, you're saying companies need to be more flexible to find out what people are actually wanting to thrive. On the other side, you're saying, hey, ladies, how about you actually, and I love the way you prefaced that at the beginning, you didn't say what they want, you said, this is what I need. Massive difference, right?
Yeah, because then it's actually ownership of, this is what I need to be successful here. And it's also a whole boundary conversation is wrapped up in that, right? Like, if this is what I need to succeed, and if this is not the place where I'll get it, that's okay. Thank you for letting me know. And it will not be successful. Like, I won't be successful here, right? So everything is on the table, which I think, look, it can be scary, especially from what we're taught. Just like you said, some women come to me still and they're like, I can't say that. That's not the way this works. And I want to be really clear when we're in conversations about hierarchy, or even a big topic in the United States right now, that everybody has their eyes on is, what are the systems that are set up socially to keep people in certain brackets economically, and from a racial perspective, a racial lens, like what are what are the systems that they have to play in? And so I want to be really careful with what I'm saying, because I do believe that you have to know where you're safe to have these conversations.
Mm.
And that's part of the interview process. If you're
Yes.
not safe enough to say what you need, not going to be a place for you to grow or to get what you need, as opposed to having a conversation of, hey, this is what I've seen and this is what I'm actually looking to grow into.
Mm.
Which is a tough conversation.
It is a tough conversation, because suddenly the fear, all of your reservations, it exposes you, right? It suddenly makes you go, oh my gosh, if I'm totally honest with them, will they still want me? Will they still value me? And so you're actually saying, when you understand your and have confidence in your worth, then it's
Mhm.
okay to sort of say, well, this is what I'm going to need in this situation, and we are going to get above and beyond results. That we'll be very happy. I mean, I do that in my
Yeah.
role. For example, I'm the CEO of an eye health charity, and then I also
Mhm.
business
Mhm.
business coach as well. And so being able to have that flexibility, but I'm happier if I have the flexibility to be able to do things like interviewing you today.
Yeah.
Then I will work better at my own role. Whereas if I didn't have that flexibility, I probably would resent that and eventually leave, or find somewhere else that gave me that, the balance that was right for me. And that's right. It's all about finding what that balance is for you. So why
Yeah.
is the mental health aspect really crucial to women's overall career success? The way we feel in the work environment, the whether we've got that flexibility or being able to be nurtured. Why is that so important, do you think?
Oh my gosh, I could speak on this for hours. I'm so excited about this, because I think for the first time the world is ready to have real conversations about what mental health is and how we take care of ourselves. And I want to be clear, I don't think this is just a conversation for women, but I think women are more open to the conversation easily,
Yeah.
in a different way than maybe men are. Although I'm seeing a lot more men open up to this. And um, I I believe that if you are taking care of yourself from a holistic lens, so what does that actually mean? Maybe you have a coach, you also have a therapist, you also have a nutritionist, you also have a group or a community that you get some physical activity in. So basically there's support structures, and I'm not saying you need all of these things at once, although that would be lovely if your company can provide that. That's actually what the CSuite Collective, the company I've founded, comes in and provides all these services for companies.
Yeah.
And it's the idea that if you have more support than you've ever had in your life, what will you turn around and become or produce as a leader in the world?
Mm.
And I really think that so far we have been able to skate by taking care of ourselves from that lens in a culture that's full of overwhelm and burnout and hustle and more, at least especially in the United States. I know some other countries are not particularly that flavor, but it's in the United States it was rampant. And I think that what was exposed in COVID is it doesn't work anymore, and it's broken. The system has always been broken. So I believe that if we can really take care of ourselves from a holistic lens, we'll have a different kind of leadership emerging, which we're already seeing sneak little tiny peaks of, which is the thing you mentioned earlier, compassion, empathy, kindness, and
Mm.
leading from that place to, again, develop longer relationships, things that are more sustainable for culture, um, you know, uh, making things a little more equal in terms of diversity and inclusion and belonging. And also, like, our world, there's so many people that are working on saving the planet, and the global crisis. And imagine if we're all taking care of ourselves in a new way, we're raising up the level of leadership and consciousness to be able to turn around and create things that were outside of an old paradigm.
Yes.
So that's why I think it's important. And frankly, we've seen what happens when we don't. So we've got a lot of evidence for what happens when we don't do this.
Me
why
too.
don't we try this other way?
Exactly. And it just makes sense. It makes sense to say if someone, if your team is at their optimal level, with their, even, their balance of spiritual health, exercise, diet, mental stability. Well, of course, you're going to be contributing in a better way to the team. Of course, you're going to be happier in your role. I have a giggle. I've often been told, because I'm so touchy feely, like, Annie, they're not your friends, they're your team, they're your staff. And I'm like going, wow, that's a really interesting premise, that yes, you don't have to be best friends with all of your team, but I spend 40 hours a week with these people. I
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
for me to have a team, I'm wanting to have all those aspects of, as you mentioned before, what creates a great culture, what creates an environment that my team are happy and healthy and enjoying actually coming to work and
Yeah.
fulfilling roles, not just doing the task. Because as you said, that just doing the task to burnout model has never worked, and it's become increasingly known that that's right, there's incredible damage from that. We've
Hmm.
talked a little bit there about what females need. Well, how is this different than how does that differ from what men need in the environment? Why are we just talking about women here? Is there a difference?
Yeah. I actually don't think there's that big of a difference, but I think we're talking about women first because again, women, number one, I think are a little more open to this,
Mm,
right? So there's an opening to work with women around this, but also women were the first to crumble in
yeah,
this pandemic. And what do I mean by that? I hate stereotypes. I really do. I don't like them. But we saw a ton of women leave the workforce because imagine, I mean, you're a CEO, you're at home, you're trying to run your beautiful team, and then you've got your kids. And if they're young kids, you've got your 2-year-old asking for things for you during meetings, and the dogs are barking, and your partner's in the other room on a call as well. And you can hear each other's calls through the walls, and at some point, I think we all, at least I'll speak for myself, it was a nice moment of like, welcome to my chaos, which I think is great, because that's vulnerable, that's open, like, hey, here's real life happening. And then there reached a breaking point
mm,
where it was like, okay, something's got to give,
mm,
right? And I think women were the ones to reach that quicker for whatever reasons, right? I mean, we could look at all the data, but
mm,
that's what we saw. And so we saw women saying, nope, I can't do this anymore.
mm.
I've had at least 4 or 5 clients that literally paused their jobs and said, I'm out. I'll
Yeah,
revisit it when this is over or when we have more help, but my family comes first. I need to get this in order. My husband's got it, or whatever, my partner. And again, these are a lot of generalizations and stereotypes, but that's what we saw. And
yeah,
so I think it just exposed where, we could immediately get more help and balance. And, I got to give it to men too. Like, I think that going through this and watching this happen really shifted something in men as well, because they are more open to the conversation when they saw everything crumble,
yeah. As
and so, you know, so I don't know that the needs are any different. I actually think they're quite the same. I think men use exactly the same support for maybe different reasons or different lenses, but um, I just think that we have a little bit more of a direct need immediately for women and an opening with women.
I love the way you've explained that, because there's actually, I totally agree. I think you've got the same needs. If you're both in a professional role, you've got the same needs to be able to, use your skill set, earn an income, you know, contribute in the ways that you do. So there is, I think, equal need. It's just this default that who's the first to sacrifice, and
Yeah,
there is a whether it's a cultural, a historical view on, okay, if we've got the kiddies at home, who's automatically going to go, okay, well, one of us has to shift. So instead of that premise of, okay, how do we both go to our employers and try and work out some flexibility to get through this challenging time and maybe do tag teaming and work it all out, there has, and we're not stereotyping, because the statistics have shown that, so many, tens of thousands of women have,
yeah,
in around
yeah,
the globe have actually been the first ones to go, okay, I'll do the kids, I'll either resign from my role or pause it for a while. And I think that that is the reason why we're having this conversation, because we need to do it better moving on. And well done to the men. They're like going, okay, this isn't working. I need to actually go, right, this is a challenging time. This is what I need. They're better at actually just going and saying, that, having that honest conversation of this is what I need in this situation. Whereas women are like, oh no. And I know that feeling that's happening, around the globe. If that's right, you're both trying to do your jobs and the kids are screaming and cats are suddenly jumping onto your table while you're on a work webinar. And exactly. We've certainly got to know people more personally, but it has come with incredible challenges. So you're dealing with a lot of high achieving women who then just get overwhelmed in their professional life situation. How do you coach them? What are the top tips that you're telling women at that time? And there'll be women listening in this podcast around the world going, I'm totally overwhelmed in my situation. I've been the one to self-sacrifice over the last, 12 to 18 months. I now don't know how to take that next step. I'm now in a worse situation than I was before. So I've lost confidence, right? How do you approach that? What words of wisdom do you have for them?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think the first thing that I would offer is take a moment to just pause. Like, let's put everything on pause. And I don't mean like pause, like check out of your life, but just give yourself some space to breathe for a second and sit down and have some compassion for yourself. That's number one, right? Like, okay, let's get off the judgment train or the I'm not good enough or I should have known or whatever train you're on, get off.
It's not
pause. Exactly. Pause and breathe. And then there's a couple things that I like to say. It's really getting back to a conversation of what do I need and what do I want, which, look, is really hard when you're, in front of a bunch of circumstances. Asking yourself what you want seems sometimes silly or like a privileged conversation. But the thing I like to remind my clients is, remember, we don't ever get to choose our circumstances. It's pretty rare that we get to choose our circumstances, but we always get to choose who we be about them. So that it's really looking at, okay, what are my circumstances? Where do I want to be? What does that look like? What does it feel like? And who will I be about what's in front of me to move forward out of this? And I think that's where the work starts. And sometimes you need to get really clear about what you want, because the decisions we're making today define the next 5 to 10 years, whether we like it or not, right? It puts us on that path. If I look at the decision I made 8 years ago when I pivoted opera, I had no clue that it would lead here, but I knew that it would lead somewhere different than where I was, right? So I think it's dreaming, allowing yourself to dream a little bit and say, okay, circumstances aside, where do I want to be? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What would it, a day in the life of you in the future? We kind of spend a day in dreamland for a little bit, right? And then come back to today and we make some moves out of that. I think the other thing that I would give as a tip is that a lot of our overwhelm or burnout or automatic cycles that we're in or patterns come from limiting beliefs and old ways of being, right? So you're a coach, I'm a coach. Work with a coach to uncover what those are.
Yes.
Talk to somebody about what's actually running the show, because that's just the symptom. Burnout is a symptom. There's something else going on. And so we gotta look under that stone and say, okay, we know what's happening, but what's driving this? And, quite often it's some version of, I need to prove something to the world, or I must take care of this from a responsibility, burdensome guilt shoulder place, or I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'll never be good enough. So I've got to keep working hard. My own personal story was, you have to work hard. And when I mean hard, it's like 80 hours a week, right? You have to work your butt off to be safe, loved, and successful, which was such a damaging story to me, right? I built an entire career off of that, which I've seen many women do, right? Because we're so strong.
Absolutely. And it's never enough, right? Even when you're doing 80 hours, it's never enough when you have that view of, yourself and what is required.
Exactly. So those are some places I would start.
Oh, I love that. And I was going to ask you that for your next question. Well, what drove you from that career as an opera singer? I mean, it's just such an interesting path, really. So you've spent a decade traveling the world, being
Yeah.
an opera singer. And then for some reason, I always love looking at the core driver to make someone step into, to being a leadership coach and trying to get this
Mhm.
balance for women and being able for them to achieve it. So is that exactly it? Did we tap on it there that it's because you realized that you were just putting in ridiculous, you weren't happy, you were happy
Yeah.
doing what you love, but you weren't happy the way you were doing it. You weren't happy with the feelings that it resulted in of just being exhausted, over, never satisfied in who you were.
Yeah,
What
100,
was it for you?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It was all of that, and I look at the journey and I think, when I first started with music, my parents will tell you I was a little girl that would stand around with a hairbrush and sing to the TV, like
Yeah.
that picture that you see of kids. I loved music. I loved it so much. And I think that combined with my limiting belief in my story, which, as kids, we watch what's happening in front of us and we make up a story about it.
Yeah.
My parents certainly didn't want to teach me that story. And I made up that story. And so that became the thing that drove everything forward. And unfortunately, what that meant is, I would go to school and people would say, "You're a great singer. You should keep singing."
Hmm.
And so I would listen, okay, I'm good at this. So I'll keep doing this. And I did my undergrad that way. I did my master's that way. I moved to New York that way. I did all the audition path and the young artist programs that way. So it just kept going. The cycle kept continuing. And eventually there was a moment where I had just gotten done with a gig and I was walking home like in the snow, a very dreary story like you hear people say. And I got home and I was like, I am miserable. Like I just had a great gig. By all means, and accounts, I should be happy. There are millions of singers who would trade places with me in a heartbeat for the life that I'm living.
Mhm.
And I was lonely and depressed, and I missed, a really important birthday party back home with my family. And I think it was on like my third failed relationship at that point. And I just realized like this is not what I want. And I've told myself I want this and I feel guilty that I don't want it. So I had to work through all of that.
Mm.
And I hired a coach myself. If I found somebody who wanted to support me in that conversation. And I never anticipated that I'd fall in love with coaching the
Mm.
way that I did, but I fell in love with it. And for the first time I knew like, okay, this I will do as a business. I see
Yeah.
how I really love this. And music has always wanted to be something for fun. And I'm going to allow myself to have that be for fun instead of something that I make a career out of. And that took a lot of work to get there and to uncover all those limiting beliefs. And um, I'm so grateful for it because now I can enjoy everything from a different lens. And I often ask myself, like if I had known what I know now and I went back into that career, it probably would have gone differently. Right. Like, and I
Exactly. Yes.
yeah, and I think a lot of people like blame the career, and I certainly don't feel that way. Like I don't think opera is a terrible career that you're always going to be lonely and on the road. No, I created it that way,
Mm.
right? So now that I know what I know, I think I love supporting singers. I love, there's some of my pro bono work that I do in the world is around artists and musicians where I'm like, you can have a different experience. It's just we got to uncover again what's under that stone.
Mm. Mm. So what would you have done differently now if you went back to your, 20, 30-year-old self? What would you do differently to stay in that career? So there's people who you've gone and made it become
Yeah.
a coach. But if you actually go, you know what, I do love opera. I am a great singer. I've got opportunities that people would dream of. So you are living the dream. It's just that you had issues with the way the dream was sort of unfolding and your
Yeah.
your choices to let or lack of choice actually to let those limiting
Yeah.
beliefs sort of sabotage your situation. What for those people who are listening in and going, yeah, it's crazy, like everyone else says I should be so happy, I actually
Yeah.
am living the dream, but I'm not. I'm lonely, and those feelings that you had, it just feels like it's just not working. So what would you have done differently if you had the mindset of today?
You know what's so funny? I would do exactly what we've already talked about.
Hmm.
I would start with those steps that we just said. I would go back and I would tell myself or those people in this position, I would say, let's slow down. Let's
Yeah.
start with what you want. Let's ask for what you want. Let's have authentic, real conversations. Because there's so many conversations that I was unwilling to have because I was afraid,
Mm.
right? I was afraid of the stigma, or I was afraid of, and some of it was based in things like scarcity, right? Like, well, I got to take that contract, even though I hate this role and I don't like singing it
Yeah.
and I don't like the people I'm working with. I need a paycheck, right? Which is fundamentally a scarcity mindset. And if
Mm.
I knew what I know now, I would know that I could have created things that I really enjoyed doing and made money at them. That's totally possible. But
Mm.
it takes nerve and courage,
Ah,
right? To be able to say no to the things you don't like or the people that you disagree with on stage. If
mhm.
you're a woman with a male conductor who's, being really disrespectful or rude to you, saying, "Hey, that's not appropriate. And I'm actually not going to perform like this."
Mm.
Right? Like that. Nobody did that. So I would tell myself that, and I do tell people that are still in the industry the same thing I give to all my C-suites. All my ladies that are in C-suites is, it takes you owning what you want and being bold about what you need.
Exactly, exactly. It is a boldness, and it is a decision to accept the situation for what it is, and then make a decision to actually, make a shift, make a change, because otherwise, your some of today's will not get you that future you want. You're just going to be on that vicious cycle that you're already on. And I love what you said there, that it is actually saying, okay, well, how tempting is it to actually just accept. We learn to accept, a situation for what it is, even though it doesn't make us happy, because it's scary, right? It's scary to go, if I
Mhm.
then choose to, leave this position to set up my own business, or to have a challenging conversation that I'm not confident in that, but I need to have it. Those
Mhm.
moments which cause real blockages, right? But they can be
Mhm.
moments in your life that, had you taken them, had you backed yourself, and if you don't have that power, self-empowerment yet, to link up with a coach, or be supported by a tribe to be able to do that, that changes your world. You suddenly get
Yeah. Yeah.
situation going, oh my gosh, like now you can get it all, because you
Mhm.
created the way that works for you, you know.
Exactly. On your terms, right? And with support, not
Yeah.
doing it alone.
And we all need support. So those of you who are out
Everyone.
there listening in and going, oh my gosh, yeah, I do feel really lonely, and it's so hard doing it all yourself, and I'm just suffering here. There are tribes of, particularly women's groups, my group, Elena's
Mhm.
group.
Mhm.
There are so many of people out there who go, hey, we'll be your support crew. And the best thing is, obviously, from our perspective, having a mentor, having a coach, having a tribe of people around you to support you, to give you that, you know boldness, to give you that little
Yes.
push. Sometimes it's just a push,
Yeah.
right? It's like, you
It's
suddenly,
a
it
push.
just feels like you're just going, I'm going to jump off something, and I go, oh no, oh no, or the handbrakes go on, because of that self-protective mechanism. And it's like, no, sometimes you just need a little push. And then go,
Yeah,
what's going
exactly.
to happen? You're not going to die.
Right, right. And people are amazed by how quick it goes when they do give themselves support, right?
Yes.
Like I remember being so surprised. And to that end, I love where you're looking, because I want people to know, like, I practice what I preach. I have a coach. I'll
Yeah.
never not have a coach,
Yeah.
right? Because I believe in what I'm saying, and the more support I add to myself and my teams, the more we all rise. And you know, that's, I just want to point that out, because I think sometimes think that they see people where they're at and they go, oh, well, they don't really need support. Even the support people are talking about it, but I bet they don't have support. And it's like, no, 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 no. I have a
Everybody
coach,
needs
I
support.
have a therapist, I have all the things.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not even just support, it's actually just someone. Everyone, I believe, needs someone who's just done a few steps before you, and in an
Mhm.
area that they actually know what they're talking about. So not just someone who's been amazing, right?
Yeah.
But are they living a journey? Are they ahead on the walk that you're wanting to follow their steps? And you'll still create your own footprints there, but
Mhm.
they actually know, they'll have key learnings. They'll be able to talk you through different ways things happened for them, what their experiences were, what their challenges were, how they adapted it. Because wherever you are, whatever position in the world, we should always be learning. We should always be
Mhm.
growing, and even the best of the best, I'm sure Tony Robbins even has a coach somewhere.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
because that's
yeah.
how they should. Because if you get to that stage of complacency, go, oh, okay, well, this is it, well, then you will just stay where you are. In fact, if you stay where you are, you're actually going backwards because other people are moving forward, right? And so you're not static. You would never want to go to a doctor, for example, a surgeon. Imagine getting heart surgery and having someone go, oh yeah, well, I was at the top of my game 20 years ago, so I haven't done anything.
Right. Right. It's like,
You'd be like, oh, okay, I might just get a second referral on that. You want someone who's like not only at the top of their game, but they've got evidence of it. They've got other
mhm,
people who are happy to give testimonials about that. They can
100%.
really articulate what they're into. And I just love that. And I love it when someone is so comfortable in sharing what they do and why they do it. And they're really happy for other people to speak to that truth. That's a whole other level. And I
Mhm,
think coming
mhm.
back to the premise of this conversation today, women in senior roles, I love that concept of women getting to a certain level and going, for me to accept this position, whether it's a career move, a new
Mhm.
title, setting up, scaling your business, whatever it is, to be able to be working out what is the package. And I think, the differences, I'd love you to talk through to the listeners because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
important to do, the varieties of types of women who will come to you in your business. What sort of, packages are they actually looking for? Because I think sometimes it's like, when you're at that stage and we go and say you need to dare to dream and know what it looks and feels like. Some people don't even know.
Yeah,
But when you share other stories, they'll go, "Oh, yeah, that's me."
100%. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, this it's juicy. Yeah. So I'm trying to think of a couple direct examples, but the women I work with are kind of across all different industries, but it would look something like this, like when I say, what do you want? And they go, I don't know what I want. I don't know where to start. It's like, okay, in a year from today, what would make this all worth it to you? How would you know that you've spent the year that you want to spend with this company? Right. And so we start there. And sometimes it's okay, I know I want to work with clients that are only in the political and entertainment sector. And I want the rest of the firm to do something else. I only want to be with these people. And this is why, because I really am passionate about politics and I think that I can really support and give and serve people in that environment. And
Mm,
so I'm like, okay, cool. So how many of those clients do you want? Oh,
mm,
I want at least 10 clients by next year. And I'm talking about people that are, like working in communications or marketing or, firms that are client serviced. That might be one approach. Or I'll say something like, okay, how much money do you want to make? And this is always a tough question, right? Because they're like,
yeah. Like,
well,
"Oh."
and they start, yeah, everybody gets real shy, for a second, and they're like, well, $200,000 would be nice, some version of that. And I'm like, okay, $200,000. So what does this number represent to you?
Yeah,
Right. So we start talking about that. And it's like, well, that's the going rate for my position right now. And it's like, okay, well, let's put that down for a second. And let's actually look at what would $200,000 provide you in your life, in your experience. So outside of just paying your bills and you think you need that money to survive, what does it represent from an experiential place?
yes.
Well, I could save for my home for my mom, or I could put my daughter in a different school, or I could buy us that new car that we really need. It's like, okay, cool. What else does it represent? Right. And so we really pull out all the fabric of the things you want in your life so that the number is not a number that you think you deserve or is competitive in a market because it's meaningless to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually mean anything at that lens, right?
Mhm.
So that's how we look at developing a number. Then we also look at, well, what do you want your work schedule to look like now, which is a big conversation topic right now, right? With
Mhm.
hybrid or in person, are you comfortable going back into the office? Do you even want to be in the office? Do you want to be remote? If you were remote, how do you think you'd like your days to go? And how could you communicate this with your employer?
Mm.
What kinds of traveling do you want to do this year for somebody who's maybe like in a very high travel situation, right? For their company. I've had a lot of C-suite say, I'm just not okay traveling 90% of the time anymore. Okay, great. Then what do you want to create that will allow you to still do what you do, but on your terms. So
Yeah.
we do a lot of brainstorming is my point, but it comes from all angles of, you know, what's the experience you want to have of your life? And then we get those bullet points and they go to their interview and they say, this is what I need.
Yes.
And here's why.
Exactly.
Right. And some companies are like, whoa, that's super clear. And we can give you 80% of that, but we can't give you the other, you know, 20. And then we come back to the table and we go, okay, so what do you think about that? What would that cost you if you give up your 20?
Yes.
Or is it a non-negotiable? You know, and no, I really need this thing. Okay, great. Are you willing to move on? Let's go talk to somebody else then.
Yeah.
Right. But it's a continual process of owning what you need, checking in with yourself, and then believing that it's possible to go find that. I think that's, you know, kind of a mini example of what it might look like.
Yeah, I love that example, because that's it. At the end of the day, it's not the 200,000, because the 200,000 is just, you know, okay, well, that's what that role pays. It's, you know, you can then earn that and then still have all these other areas of your life that are chaotic, you know, aren't happy, aren't fulfilling, whatever. Whereas when you actually paint the picture of what you actually, you know, that's what I do. I teach people on where they are, they dream to be. And so it is all about the dream. Well, what does that dream absolutely look like? And it will look so different, you know. So for some people, that 20%, you know, some things might be negotiable. It's a bit like when you go for a house, can you get 100% of the features that you're wanting?
Exactly.
Sometimes you go, okay, well, that kitchen wasn't negotiable, and that, you know, that bathroom, but I suppose the laundry, you know, wasn't quite what I was thinking, but I'm happy to settle, you know, like, so at this stage, so we will definitely compromise, but some things are not negotiable, you know. So for some people it might be just to be able to have, all I need is, you know, in this whole package, I still need the flexibility to be make sure that every time one of my kids has a school event, I can go, you know. That's me. I do not want to, because I'll have that moment. I think I heard you say before, you know, you missed something, and I was like that. I had a real moment when I had to go to, I thought I had to go to Singapore for, you know, for a meeting, and I missed my daughter's graduation. And I remember this story, like, I just can't do it. I have to do this thing. And then now, you know, like within a year or two later, I went, why did I have to go? You know, like, what is more important? So for me, that was a not negotiable. I still cry over it, you know.
Oh, I know. Listen, we all have that. I'm telling you.
Worst mum ever. Like, I just feel sick about it. I'm like, what could have been more important? I just cannot believe it. And so for me, I hadn't done that what is not negotiable thing, you're right. And then I had to live and breathe it. And I'm sitting in Singapore going, I can't believe nothing's more important than this, you know, like, what was I thinking? And you can't get it back. So, you know, you can't kill yourself over things, but you can certainly create a picture and go, okay, that to me is not negotiable. If I have, you know, and even now I'm a grandma. I've got like a little nearly 4-year-old granddaughter, and I've got a new little bub, and I'm like going, okay, well, I actually have to have, whenever they have a special day, like in the future, I'm going to every single one of them. So I have to have a work environment that's possible. And I also, even if someone schedules something, I'll go and say, oh, unfortunately, I'm actually book that time. Like, I actually make it, you know, and that's a different way of, you know, I coach with people to actually, well, what's in your diary? Is your not negotiable in the diary ahead of those other decisions, and having the boldness to move. How often do many other people, you know, go and say, oh, that's not going to work for me because I've already got something, you know, they'll claim it. And 99% of the time people go, oh, okay, yeah, no worries. We can work around that. It's amazing.
Exactly. And it's not even a question. They're like, okay, cool, you're busy. And it's like,
and we think it's such a big thing. I couldn't possibly tell them, for all these reasons that are just in our head. It's the what if. They're not going to agree with it. Who's to say? You know, at least, you know, ask them. One, ask, and then two, know what you're going to accept. What's a breaker and what's not a breaker. And that's why I just love the work that you're doing, Elena, because it's so important having these conversations with people, and they will just, it really does. It puts you on a whole new trajectory once you get this clarity. It's a clarity around, you know, then you know the look and feel. That's what it is.
And it's, I don't think once you know, you can't ever go back either, right? It's like, once you get this clarity that you're speaking about, it's your life is forever changed.
It really is. It does, because yeah, that's right. It's like I used to be like that. Whereas, it'll be exactly, the listeners will hear my tone of like, I'm never missing one of those meetings, one of those events again.
Yeah.
Because it was because I felt the pain, I felt the lack, I felt the sadness that I'd made a choice,
Mm.
and for me that was a bigger choice. Someone else was like, yeah, I can miss those, but they'll have a different, priority point. And there is no competition, there is no standards. It's what's right for you in your situation. And we've all got different situations, support systems, expectations of ourselves, desires of things that we want to achieve. And sometimes there is, if you're
Mhm.
coaching athletes, for example, if they've got to do certain things to get to an Olympic Games or something else, then they
Mhm.
might have to sacrifice for a period of time and go, I know it, I've thought it through, and I have to own that and the consequences of that, but I will still achieve my goal. And there's nothing wrong with that either. It's about
Mhm.
it's just making choices that suit you well, right? That
Yeah,
serve you well in your situation.
exactly.
So tell the listeners about the CSuite Collective then. How can they find you? What will they receive when they reach out to you, Elena?
Yeah, well, the CSuite Collective, so we're launching November 1st. So you can go to the csuitecollective.com, and it does have a hyphen in it, the C dash suite. And basically, we are a big platform of a lot of the same people that believe in what we just spoke about, that believe in changing the conversation of how support goes in the world. We have about 15 executive coaches on staff that are extremely well trained and all have their own different niches and various ways of working with people, and are committed to changing cultures and changing the conversation about how inclusion and belonging go. And then we've also got a bunch of practitioners. We've got a sound healer, a Reiki therapist, an herbalist, a sleep consultant, a meditation specialist, a breathwork specialist, a physical trainer, who is, again, all of the same mind frame of support and healing are part of this conversation of creating culture and having things become more equitable with people. So that's what you're going to get when you reach out. And, if you are an individual, we've got a home for you. If you're a company, we've got a home for you. Our stand is that everybody gets served and we find a place for you. If we're not it, we have tons of recommendations for you. And really just opening the doors, to having more people have access to this work, but from a wider lens than we've been talking about it.
Yeah, I love that. That is
Right.
just so broad. There's just so much value in the service that you're providing. So, everybody go to the C-Suite Collective, check it out. Definitely reach out to Elena, and she's not just her; it's the we behind that. It's her learnings, her training, but she's also got a massive team, which is just really holistic. And so, well done you. That
Mhm.
just gives people so much extra value. So let's finish
Thank
our
you.
conversation today by you sharing. Well, what does it mean to be a successful woman? For you, what how would you describe success on your terms?
Oh my gosh. Success on my terms is I am the living, breathing dream of my ancestors before me, who always wanted to have, basically you hear this phrase often, we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors and what they've built, and I feel that way. They worked hard to get me to where I am, to be able to have the access that I have. And my biggest success and legacy that I could ever do as a successful woman and entrepreneur and founder in the world is to create the next generation's leg up, you
Mm,
know, to be the thing that somebody else stands on my shoulders for what's next. So that's success to me, and changing the conversation, like we've been saying, around race and social justice and belonging and access. I think these are conversations we'll be in forever as humans, and to just move the needle forward for the next generation is that's my time here will be well spent if I've done that.
I think your time here will be very well spent. You're certainly a legacy maker. You've got incredible, drivers behind you of making the world a better place and having that sort of framework of, I want to be moving ahead. That's right. Even from that, I love that because I feel like that with my grandmas of, what sort of times that they had, challenges that they had to get, themselves as women in the positions they were having. And it's just like, wow, we need to, continue to build on that, to make it the world a better, stronger place with more diversity, inclusion, all those opportunities. So I think you've just framed that so wonderfully. Thank you so much for joining me on my program today. I wish you all the best with the launch
Thank
of
you.
your business and all your future success.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you. You're so special. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Memoirs of Successful Women. You can find me at anniegibbins.com, where you can download my free resources, get connected on social, and check out my online magic transformation program. If you love this show, feel free to subscribe to future episodes and, of course, share it with your friends. I'll see you again soon, and until then, happy podcasting.